Hello and welcome to this webinar entitled Getting Sales Recruitment Right, How to Maximise Your Interview. Today we're going to focus on the interview and how to ensure that you can increase the predictive power of this recruitment method in order to help you to identify the top sales stars and hire better salespeople. In the previous webinar, we looked at the costs of getting sales recruitment wrong and the benefits that identifying a top performer can add to your business's bottom line. This table shows that the interview is by far and away the most popular assessment method when seeking to hire new staff. The CV or application form interview, which I will refer to as a biographical interview, involves questioning candidates around their career history and key achievements, and according to a recent survey from the Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, this type of interview is used by over 80% of all businesses. Competency-based interviews, where candidates are asked a series of questions designed to better understand their likely behaviour and responses when presented with scenarios that are relevant to the role, are used by 77% of businesses. When you look at the predictive power of each method, you can see that in comparison to other methods, the predictive power, particularly of the biographical interview, is relatively low. So why is that? In the last webinar, you'll remember that I introduced the behavioural iceberg as a way of illustrating that a lot of what determines people's behaviour and actions is down to internalised thoughts and beliefs that people rarely show on the surface. Because an interview is a self-report, candidates are invited to promote their achievements and therefore hold a lot of power over what they choose to tell you and what they don't. From my own experience of sales recruitment, it's very rare that I come across a candidate who was not the top salesperson in the team or region in their previous role. And I've had occasions where two applicants from the same company have both said that they were the number one salesperson. A biographical interview suffers because it's based on what the candidate has written in their CV or application form, and so they may already have been selective about the roles and achievements that they have highlighted. The interview becomes another way to undertake a level of self-promotion whereby they are selling themselves to you. Another issue with the biographical interview is that each one will vary according to the information in the CV or application form that the candidate has provided. Imagine the difference in a CV between a career salesperson with 20 years experience and one from a candidate who has only a couple of years experience. Now you might say that the experienced salesperson is the better choice, but how would you interpret, for example, the number of roles that they've had during their career? Is 15 roles too many? What if it was 12 roles? This highlights another problem in that different interviewers may interpret the same information differently, and this further affects the ability of the interview to accurately predict how a candidate will perform in the role. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should get rid of the interview. We should simply recognise its limitations and look at how we can make it work more effectively. For example, if we use a competency-based interview rather than a biographical interview, the previous table showed us that the likelihood of accurately predicting the performance of a candidate will increase. There are a number of reasons for this, but the main one is that the competency-based interview defines the key requirements for the role first and then uses targeted questions to explore the candidate's likely behaviour in different scenarios by getting them to give examples from their previous experience. In that way, a competency-based interview enables you to collect far more detailed information of how a candidate has handled similar situations in the past. Because the key requirements are defined in advance, you can check off the candidate's responses against these requirements in order to determine the candidate's fit or match to the role. Because each candidate is asked the same question, it removes the risk that arises from conducting biographical interviews whereby you're reliant on the selective information that each candidate has provided in their CV. Finally, because the key requirements are clearly defined, it ensures that there's a level of consistency between interviewers and removes the risk of the same information being interpreted differently. You can turbocharge your interview even further by combining these various interview formats. Much like the assessment centre combines multiple assessment methods and leads to greater predictive power, you can combine the formats within the interview. I believe a structured biographical review has merit in terms of understanding the relevance of a candidate's experiences and key achievements in relation to your role, as well as putting the candidate at ease. However, as the least predictive type of interview, this should be a relatively short part of the process, around about 10 minutes. The competency-based interview is where you are able to really drill down into a candidate's likely behaviours based on their previous experiences. In sales, a typical question might ask a candidate to give an example of a time when they have achieved an exceptional sale or perhaps dealt with an angry customer. The skill is in then probing the example that the candidate gives you so that you have a clear understanding of how they dealt with that situation. Open questions, such as what did you do, why did you choose to take that approach, can elicit a level of detail that you wouldn't get from the biographical interview. The interviewer should be using their skills in questioning to get the candidate to lead them through the example from start to finish, using the probing questions to elicit further information as they see fit. Typically, you might explore 5 or 6 different scenarios based on the key requirements for the role, and each example might take 7 or 8 minutes to fully explore. And so you're looking at around about 45 minutes for that part of the interview. The personality questionnaire review enables you to focus on that particular candidate's motivations and behavioural preferences. And so here you are tapping into their drive to, that part of the behavioural iceberg that is under the water that determines the individual's willingness to keep undertaking the key sales behaviours day in, day out. Later in this series, we'll look in more detail at how you can assess the drive to using a sales-focused personality questionnaire so that you can better understand your candidate's long-term sales potential. Detailed feedback and review of the results of the personality questionnaire can take up to half an hour, and so in total, for a robust process that maximises the predictive power of the interview, you're looking at around about 1.5 hours in total. So let's recap. When interviewing, the key ways of enhancing the predictive power of the interview are to clearly define the key requirements of the role, to ensure consistency by asking candidates the same questions that enables each candidate to give examples that are relevant to the key requirements of the role, to properly train your interviewers in key interview skills so that they are confident and capable of probing candidates' evidence, to thoroughly probe your candidates' examples to elicit as much detail as possible and to get an in-depth understanding of their likely behaviour in different sales scenarios. To combine formats within the interview so that you're taking the best bits from the biographical interview, the competency-based interview, and using a relevant sales-focused personality questionnaire. And finally, to ensure that you spend sufficient time on the interview so that you're able to thoroughly explore each candidate's skills and experiences. Thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to know more, please feel free to get in touch with us. There is more information on our website at bluejam.co.uk.